They say life doesn't always announce the moments that matter most. Sometimes they arrive quietly, almost politely, slipping into the corners of your day. When you're distracted by routine, dulled by repetition, convinced that nothing new could possibly happen to you anymore. That's exactly how it began for me, not with anything dramatic or loud, but with something so ordinary I almost missed it entirely. Until he walked in and somehow, without anything obvious changing, everything did. David had always been part of this house. Growing up right in front of me, from a boy who needed help tying his shoes to a young man now visiting from college. Taller, steadier, carrying himself differently, but still someone I thought I understood, safe, familiar, uncomplicated. Yet that afternoon, there was something in the way he watched me with a kind of attention that felt new, almost unfamiliar. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a softness wrapped in something I couldn't quite place. I reacted the way I always did, brushing it off with a small smile, rolling my eyes as if it meant nothing. Yet when I brought the spoon closer, there was a pause, a fraction of a second that stretched longer than it should have. He leaned in slowly, deliberately, his eyes never leaving mine. In that suspended moment, I became acutely aware of everything. The faint ticking of the clock on the wall, the hum of the refrigerator, the way my own breath seemed louder than usual. Something shifted inside me, subtle but undeniable. It wasn't about the dessert or the gesture itself. It was about the space between us, the silence that followed, the way I didn't immediately step back or pull away. I knew even then that I should have created distance, should have broken whatever invisible thread had formed in that moment. Not all at once, but slowly, like a thread being pulled from fabric. By a marriage that had become more functional than emotional, where conversations felt rehearsed and touch had become rare. Thomas, despite being dependable and responsible, had slowly drifted into a version of himself that existed more in obligation than in presence, leaving behind a space that I had learned to fill with routine and resignation, convincing myself that this was simply what life looked like. Until David's presence disrupted that narrative in the smallest, yet most significant ways because he listened when I spoke. Not just hearing, but actually engaging, asking questions that didn't feel obligatory. Remembering details I barely thought were worth mentioning. When you've gone so long without being truly acknowledged, even the simplest attention can feel overwhelming, like sunlight after years in the shade. I found myself noticing him more, noticing the way he carried conversations, the ease in his tone, the quiet confidence. It wasn't something I consciously encouraged, at least not at first, but it grew anyway, in the spaces between ordinary moments, in shared glances that lasted a little longer than necessary, in conversations that lingered past their natural end. Until one evening when the house felt particularly still, the kind of quiet that presses against you, making you aware of everything. He looked at me in a way that felt too perceptive, too knowing, and asked a question so simple it caught me off guard. Because it wasn't just about how I looked, but about how I felt. I hesitated, unsure whether to dismiss it like I usually did. But something about his tone made it difficult to deflect. And before I could stop myself, the truth slipped out, quiet but honest. Admitting something I hadn't said aloud in a long time, that I felt invisible, overlooked, like I had slowly disappeared. In that moment, something inside me shifted again, deeper this time, because being seen, truly seen, can break down walls you didn't even realize you had built, and I should have recognized the weight of that moment, as if it had been building toward that point without either of us fully acknowledging it, and the brief contact that followed, soft and fleeting, carried more consequence than anything that had come before it, because when it ended, reality returned all at once. By creating distance, by walking away without a word, as if silence could somehow undo what had already been set in motion. But it didn't, and the days that followed were heavier, filled with an unspoken tension that lingered in every shared space. Every avoided glance, every moment where words could have been said but weren't, although he seemed to move forward. I found myself unable to let go of it, replaying the moment over and over, questioning not just what had happened, but why it affected me so deeply, forcing me to confront parts of myself I had long ignored, parts shaped by years of feeling unseen, unheard, and untouched. I realized that what I had mistaken for stability in my life had actually been a kind of quiet emptiness, one I had learned to accept, until something disrupted it, reminding me what it felt like to be noticed again. That realization was both unsettling and impossible to dismiss, because it blurred the lines between right and wrong, between intention and emotion, leaving me with questions I couldn't easily answer about my marriage, my choices, and the version of myself I had become. Even now, looking back, I can't say with certainty whether I regret that moment, or whether it simply revealed something that had been there all along, waiting beneath the surface. Sometimes the things we try hardest to ignore are the ones that define us most. And sometimes a single quiet moment can echo far longer than anything loud or dramatic ever could, lingering in your thoughts, reshaping your understanding of yourself and reminding you that not all changes come with warning signs. Some just arrive, uninvited and undeniable, leaving you to deal with the consequences long after they've passed.